Okay, fantastic. Oh, we love a good technical fafu on a Friday. I don't know if a fafu is a word, but we were giving all of that today and still were able to overcome those challenges because nothing is going to get in the way of this fabulous conversation with the fabulous Foluke. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. You're absolutely right. This is a great way to kick off a Friday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for anyone who is just joining us, hello, every beautiful body out there. My name is Blaire G. Hervey. I'm the founder and CEO of The Corporate Strategist, and I'm joined by my colorful co host, my bestie and soul friend of 20 plus years. And that's how you can tell we're besties because we start kind of dressing alike a little bit there. You see with the black and white sweaters what we did? DeAngelo, hi, how are you, dear?
I am fantastic. As they always say in church, delayed but not denied. Okay, so we may have came in a little late today, but we still here and kicking it.
That's right.
I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm wearing another black shirt today that says "Black Proud." Period. You can't see the period down there, but I just want to give a shout out. You know, I'm all about my black designers and black businesses. So pretty excited about today's conversation as well, Blair.
Oh, I am so excited. I love that you wear these designers because we're going to have some merchandise or a t-shirt coming out as well. I sent it over to D last night and he was really excited. He seemed to be excited about the design. What did it say?
It said. You
Oh,
always want to spot. I know it said. Go ahead, say it. What did it say?
we
What?
deserve peace.
Peace
Okay.
and pay. Yes, I want to say peace and our pay. We need the peace and the pay. Hallelujah.
It is not Sunday, but you taking us to church.
I'm
Anyway,
ready.
I will pass it back to you. I mean, I can already tell, but we always start with the art of the check-in, D. So you want to kick us off or you want to just tell us how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling fantastic. It's Friday. We've made it through one fantastic week of shows. Oh my goodness, you and Jarrell yesterday were excellent. I definitely enjoyed. I watched it after I got out of my meeting yesterday, but it was a fantastic show. So kudos to you too. So I'm feeling good. We made it to Friday. That's I'm always excited about Friday. For Luke, we do the art of the check-in where we check in not just on the surface level, but if it's some deep stuff you got going on, you want to share with the peoples or just us, you can do that. So how are you feeling today? How are you doing?
So I want to share that I think we are all kind of like on the same page too. I have my statement shirt on. It says drink water, fight racism, and empower women. So just wanted to put that out there and say I feel you on that. Overall, I think I'm operating in reality today, y'all. And I say that because I'm sure that you both have seen are aware of, I guess the word I can use, the unprecedented expulsion of two black lawmakers here in Tennessee, Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, as an act of retaliation from the GOP because they were supporting the gun control protests on the House floor in response to last week's Nashville school shooting. And so I say I'm operating in reality because, you know, it's been less than 2 weeks since those three young students, I think they were all the age of 9, and then you have the three school workers that were gunned down. And the legislature in Tennessee chose to use its power not to do something to make it harder for mass murderers to get weapons, but to protect its rules about how people should act. And so it's not surprising, you know, Tennessee is a deep red state, but that's what I mean by I'm operating in reality, just trying to move through the being disheartened, and just continue to figure out what, you know, my contribution to change needs to look like.
Yeah, I'm calling them the Justins. I've been talking about them all day on social media because have been following the story. I will tell you what I feel good about is
Mhm.
that the Gen Z they're gonna lead. Every show we talk about the work we're doing today, we are not gonna see it come to fruition, but Gen Z is gonna see it, and they're demanding. They're not even asking for equality. They're demanding that we have equality. So I will say that I've already heard reports that they're going to be one of them is going to be voted back into office or going to be whatever appointed back into his seat, right? So against all that, I think it's so profound to see the fight and the many people who are behind them across the country. So I think you're right. It's a day of like feeling indifferent. Are we going back? But I think if we looked at the civil rights movement of the 1960s, it was the young people who changed our country, and I think once again they're going to do that again. So feel that gives me a little hope, I would say. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Blair, how you feeling today?
Oh, you know what? I mean, I feel educated at this point. I'm one of those people, I get my news from the Breakfast Club. And so whatever is top of mind, and oftentimes these conversations come up, but definitely at a high level. If I want to go a little bit deeper, I might ask DeAngelo some questions, or he may volunteer some information to me. But for the most part, I am a laggard when it comes to politics, until most recently when I'm realizing, how much our vote matters. And even at an almost 40-year-old woman, before I'd be like, oh, it doesn't matter, or I'm just going to vote my interest, or I'll just vote for who I like. And, I may tell a couple of people, but now we're really, if you hadn't paid attention before, you're starting to see how those local elections and those much larger elections affect not only your interests, but everyone around us, and have much longer lasting impact. So I appreciate the education. I appreciate that tidbit of information as well. And I appreciate you saying that you're operating in reality, because oftentimes I'm operating in the clouds. That's Sagittarius for you. Okay. But bringing us back to you, Foluke. So again, we have our wonderful guest speaker. Just a tidbit of information about her. She's worked in DEIB, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, since 2009, starting in the federal sector, public and private sectors to follow, and most recently leading DEIB work in her current organization. So congratulations for your launch. She's actually a certified diversity professional who launched this consulting firm primarily focused on DEIB assessments, strategy development, and training. So we welcome you. Thank you for again being here today.
Thank you.
No problem. So we'd love to learn just a little bit more about you and what brought you into this work. I know you've been doing this for, you said since 2009, but what we have learned about most of our guests is that we say that there was a point in time when we got into this work professionally, but we found that we've been doing this work all along. It's been our lived experience that got us here. So we'd love to learn a little bit more about what got you into this work, and what was that pivotal moment that said you have to have your own consulting firm.
Absolutely. So I think the more gray hairs I get, and as I continue to see how our world evolves, I'm firmly planted in the fact that this work is a part of my purpose. I am the youngest child of two Black parents, one born and raised in Tuskegee, Alabama, and one in Vicksburg, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South. And I've just always had a keen awareness of racism, bias, and discrimination, having witnessed it and experienced it from a young child to recently. And so I began in HR in 2003. This year will be 20 years. Lord help me. And the same as the start of my HR field, my transition into DIB was intentional. You mentioned I was working in the federal sector. I was what we would call a recruiter or TA specialist with the Department of Homeland Security. And I became aware of the EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity career field, after participating in a rotational program. And so as I, completed my work there, I just felt connected to the goal of that work, to make employees whole following acts of discrimination and bias. And so I was connected to it so much, Blair, that I agreed to a demotion to begin working in the field as an intern for another federal agency, because that's all that was available at the time. So specifically to my start in what we now call DIB work, that did begin in 2009 as an intern. And since then, directly or indirectly, I've been working and learning and leading DIB efforts. And it gets ugly sometimes, but there's some beauty in it, just knowing that you're a part of positive change and impact. And so when you ask about like that pivotal moment that brought me into this space, it really wasn't a moment for me. It was just a desire for me to be able to be a part of positive impact, making things better. I am an empath, and I'm very sensitive to the emotions and frames of mind of others. And as a leader, I felt it was just my responsibility, to learn and grow and develop head first into diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so that is really what fueled my desire to begin working in this space.
That's beautiful. When I heard you say I'm an empath and I'm sensitive, you know, in my mind, in my ear, I heard I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about, like, you know,
every time.
Same difference. But I also heard that element of readiness. So I know that you had to take a demotion in order to get into this role, but you also participated in a rotational program. So oftentimes I talk about three main metrics, which is the recruitment, the retainment, and the readiness as it pertains to DEIBA work. And if you don't have an opportunity to be exposed to different opportunities, you're not often ready for that next level. So I love hearing about that chapter of your journey. I'm gonna turn it back to Dee so we can get right into this topic.
All right.
So Foluke, you know, the word belonging in corporate America is relatively new. You know, you talked about your work in EEO. That's really where it kind of started at. When we think about diversity, we were just looking at the numbers. We weren't really thinking about what was the experience of them. But when I think about belonging, that word really exists from the time we're born. When I was reading about your background and you talked about you being the youngest, but you didn't say the youngest of 6 kids, right? And so how might you have been looking for belonging, being the youngest and being 5 people older than you in a family, and maybe even the families of just 2 children, right? We're all looking for this space of belonging. We don't know how to articulate it. We don't know what it is. And now that we're working in this space, we understand what it looks like, and it's different for everyone, right? When I talk to leaders, they often say, well, can you pinpoint and tell me what exactly it is? I'm like, no. We're not asking you to solve belonging for all of the employees in your organization. We're asking you to think about what are the top things that are bubbling up when you're looking at those employee surveys or when you're listening to employees. But really, belonging really, once again, starts from birth, and it sticks with us throughout life of us thinking about how do we exist in these spaces. And sometimes it changes as we change, as we evolve, as we need other things for belonging. So talk to me today as we dig into the importance of belonging. It's kind of vague, but let's get into it a little bit deeper here. Why is belonging important to Black professionals? Why should organizations be concerned about this and want to create or strengthen belonging for Black professionals?
Okay, so first of all, I think you just broke it down beautifully with what you said, DeAngelo. But I think that, you know, nowadays we hear the advice of others in this space, the Brene Browns of the world, telling us to be vulnerable and to lean into difficult situations. But I think as Black professionals, our lived experiences and societal traumas differ from those of our white colleagues or other colleagues, making it difficult for us to embrace those ideals. And so because belonging is a basic human need. And before any person of any race can really start to let their guard down and feel comfortable and speak up, they have to feel safe and they have to feel like they're in a trusting environment. So when our basic human need of belonging has been met in the workplace, you know, these things are in place. When we feel like the environment that we're in is safe and it's trusting, we feel at that point that we can show our true selves. You know, we open up and we share who we really are around others. I think that last week's events that transpired around LSU's women's basketball team's win serves as a perfect example of why professional environments are typical to that or similar to that we as Black professionals encounter. You know, at times we can feel like we'll never be accepted by others because, you know, there's no sense of belonging between ourselves and our colleagues, no matter how much we accomplish, you know, how hard we play or how many trophies we win. And because of how we have been and are treated, essentially, sometimes we don't feel safe. And so I think for Black professionals, the question that we need to ask is, how can we trust others when we have shown up as our true authentic selves, we're either ridiculed, judged, or all those other things. And it can be our approach to something, you know, the way we talk, the way we articulate, our hair, and any of those other, you know, really authentic aspects of our identity. So we're on alert when we just choose silence and to those encounters. And I think that organizations that allow that to happen, that, you know, encourage or allow those spaces of fear and the lack of trust combined with the dynamics of the work that we do just really results in the creation of those invisible barriers that exist where they should not have to exist.
Yeah, that's definitely well said. You know, when I hear you talk about belonging, I think about one of the topics that DeAngelo and I have definitely ran for a couple of organizations. And I like to refer to it as belonging is everybody's business. You know, I'm country, honey, born in Dallas, Texas, raised in Louisville, Kentucky. So it's everybody's business.
Right.
When we're thinking about that space, or when we're thinking about people who are different or underrepresented in a space, I would love to ask you the question, who is the onus on to make sure that that person feels comfortable? Who are our allies in that space to ensure that that person feels as though they belong? So maybe that's a two-part question for you.
Well, I think that, we all play a part in it, right? The great thing about it is that stepping up as an ally, an accomplice, or co-conspirator, whatever you want to call it, regardless of our positions in our workspaces, that's really the key ingredient to building workplace cultures of belonging. I think that because we have so many different aspects of our identities within us, we can really leverage those to create those partnerships and really serve as the accomplices and the allies that are needed to those that don't have privilege in that space. So I think it's just really important to be able to kind of use whatever privilege we have in those applicable spaces to help bring in others so they can have that sense of belonging. And then that spreads throughout the organization, right? So once that you see that encounter, let's just say it starts at the team level, you're focused on creating that environment at the team level, then you have so many members of the team that it branches out to other parts of the organization, and then it truly becomes a part of the culture in action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me say this real quick, D, because I just want to make sure that people are catching this, because sometimes it can be very, to your point, kind of vague or kind of fluffy, and people are just, okay, give me the thing. What do I need to do? And I heard the word trust. Mm-hmm. How do other people gain our trust after we've experienced so much trauma and we're re-triggered and we feel as though we don't belong? Like, what are some tangible things that our allies can do in this space?
One is just be there, be an ear, be open. A lot of times we see things through our own lens. It's constricted. We're all just a sum of our experiences. We all hear that term a lot, right? But in my own experience as helping to foster, belonging, whether it's personally or professionally, I think that the first thing is I have to hold myself accountable is how I show up to others and just be. That could be asking questions respectfully, listening to what others share about themselves. A lot of times I think we want to jump in and we want to do and we want to take action, but really my personal belief is an essential part of belonging is being a person that can receive another person, receive who they truly are, receive everything about them and be okay with that, and don't try to project ourselves, our own thoughts, our own way of thinking, our own perception of the way things should be onto them. So really just essentially being supportive in any kind of way to others is that key essential ingredient to belonging.
Thank you.
That's great. That's fantastic. One of the things that I am advocate of is, I started my career in culture working specifically in the employee engagement space, right? And as I've evolved now, I want to say, how do we stop saying the word engage, but not stop, but replace it with the word belonging, employee belonging? Because when we get belonging at its highest, we're going to get higher engagement scores. And we saw that during COVID when companies were really caring for employees and they saw heightened engagement scores, right? So talk a little bit about how does one go in and say, we need to have belonging in this organization? What's the business case? So how do they say we need to do this? What's the importance of this work? And why do we need to be talking about this or looking at the belonging of our employees here at this organization?
Yeah, I think first to be able to, am I missing you, DeAngelo?
Okay. No, go ahead. Sorry, what'd you say? Go ahead.
All right. But I think just first being able to be able to cultivate a sense of belonging, we first have to have a solid understanding of what it means to belong, and then measure and understand how the people that power the organization experience it. I think, and that's where that engagement piece comes in, DeAngelo. I think for a long time, companies have been concentrating on expanding their diversity. However, I think that it is important or more important than ever for leaders to shift from a diversity focused approach to really making safety, inclusion, and belonging focused workspaces as the focal point. You hear so much about safe spaces, right? And that's really where we start, again, with that safety and belonging as our most basic human needs, and allowing that to be met where we work. And so just the business case is just really to truly foster the belonging. I'm a big believer in practicality and also root cause analysis. And so to foster that belonging, we have to first understand what's standing in its way. So what's the root cause? And which namely are typically those corporate norms that create the barriers, which are the symptoms or the outcomes, and then address or eliminate them. That would be my approach. And so then when that is accomplished, you can see, you can feel, and you can measure the positive effects of true belonging. When your employees feel a sense of belonging, two things are going to happen. They are more likely to stay, so your retention rate improves, and then you have low turnover costs. You're able to invest that capital into more high value, good impact initiatives. And then secondly, they're gonna attract more individuals or talented folks that look like them. So increase diversity within the organization, and all of those, I think, positively affects any organization's business outcomes.
That's helpful. Now, D hears this all the time. I love a good alliteration or a good framework. That way people can remember. It must be my L&D background. Okay. It's the learning and development background. But what I heard you say in responding to both of our questions was a BCR or 3B kind of technique. You said just be. I heard be curious, and I heard be receptive. So if nothing else, everyone that's listening out there, take that into your next meeting. Like, how can we foster an environment and a culture of belonging? Let's first start with these 3 B's. And I mean, maybe it's the B's that, really caught my ear. Roll your eyes if you'd like to, DeAngelo. That's wonderful. I love that. That's very, very helpful. I have one more question. I know we have actually a little bit more time because we started 5 minutes late as well. So when we're talking about programming, things of that nature. So I know that you were really excited about some of the programming, the events, and your team growth that you were going to be sharing with everyone next year. I saw one of your posts. And you're really focused, obviously, on people, purpose, passion, again, the alliteration, right? Tell us a little bit about the programming we can expect around belonging. We see trainings, we see motivational talks, even for a consultant like myself or D. What should we expect? What are the industry trends? What should we be doing?
Yeah. So I think that we do have current ways of fostering belonging that we could really improve. One of the basic requests I receive from organizations since I've launched has been either launching, developing, or working with current ERGs in order to build community within organizations. I can say personally that ERGs have been my saving grace with retention in organizations I've worked for, because that's where my village lived. That's where my sounding board was. That's where the folks that I would cry with after situations occurred, that's where they were. And so you think about how many people are in the same boat within organizations now. And so I think the our ERGs, or employee resource groups, for those that are not familiar, or similar organizations, are really a pivotal part of helping to build community within the organization. I'm also a big believer in terms of top-down approach. When there is not just buy-in, but action from your senior level executives in terms of fostering belonging, then there is no doubt that a ripple effect will occur. But there's also there has to be a focus on your middle managers and your first line leaders, because that is where the most impact lies. And so a lot of the system development, training development, and ERG development that I'm working with other organizations with focuses on those two levels. You want high impact in anything that you do in terms of employee things that will affect employees. And so those types of services are things that I'll be working on. We'll be working on rolling out an ERG workshop for organizations that can be virtual, or they can be done through e-learning. So that's exciting to see. Also working on individual or customized developmental plans for organizations based on their their individual needs. There's not a, one size fits all to this approach. And so just having those tools, I think organizations having those tools is very important to see the growth in terms of belonging and retention and engagement and turnover.
I love that idea. I love like ERG workshops, DeAngelo.
Mm-hmm.
There was this thing that I attended a long time ago when I was in learning and development, and it was some type of workshop, and they taught you different activities just to keep, trainings and events going.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see something like that in an ERG workshop. There's that book. What's that book, DeAngelo? That workbook, Do the Work by Kalu Maybell. Help me.
I don't know who you. I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about, but now you got you. When you put me on the spot like that, you know my memory's bad.
Child, I always say winging it is for the birds. So I
got but yeah, that's it. You're right. Do the Work. Yes, that's the name of the book. Yes, he is also a comedian and hosts definitely different documentaries on I think CNN is where he's doing some of his work at. Yes. You're right.
Thank you.
And who's the author?
It's by two people. It is by Kwame Bell. That's not how you say that, and Katie Schultz is the name of it.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure that's something you could leverage if you already don't have your own content. But thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. I know that was kind of on the spot as well for both of them.
I appreciate it. Every day I feel like I'm seeing great work of a good pastor when you give me the alliterations too. So you're just on it. That's how a good pastor do. Tell me the name of that choir. What's the song? And they shout out.
The B.
Right, exactly.
But do you remember? It's the 3 B's. You have to just be curious.
And be receptive. Yeah, we're gonna walk away with the beast. Yes, but Luke, I wanted to just say that I love the fact that you're thinking about ERGs, BRGs as a liaison and my organization as advisor for our business resource groups and having built business resource groups. That is one of the most impactful communities in the organization. And oftentimes, as I talk to leaders about, where you're going to find some of your most highest performing diverse talent at. And right, so the work is around how do we build pipelines. So I would love to have you come back on and talk more about that and talk about that middle management level, because baby, that's a whole other conversation on the struggles. If we could do chronicles of a DEIBA collective professional, it would be that mid-level manager and all the stories that we could talk about around the challenges we have with them. So, but thank you for sharing and pouring into us and the audience today for sure.
Yes, thank you for having me. I think that what you guys are doing, I said I was going to stop saying guys, what you both are doing, what you both are doing is really great. I've been watching them all week, and I think that this is something that should not stop. They are very timely, efficient. Use of 30 minutes. So that's just something to put in your head, keep it going, please, for folks like us that like this content.
I love that. And for anyone out there, if you don't catch us live or if you just popped in or whatever the case may be, you can always find the recordings on YouTube, on the Corporate Strategist YouTube. We'll share clips, but thank you, Foluke, as well. I've definitely pushed DeAngelo to do this every single day, and I'm so proud of him.
We made it. Just I want to give my shout out before we close out. My shout out, we talked about at the top of the hour, is to Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, who I'm calling the Justin, are those Tennessee state legislators who are really they're going to start a movement, as I say, with the work that they're doing and how passionate they are. So please, if you do nothing else today, go read up on them, read more about Foluke, but definitely once again read up on them. They're all over the news right now and the powerful work that they're doing. So, all right, that's my shout out.
I would say on top of your shout out, let's shout out to these young kids or adults that are out there with them, really answering the call for change. They have been out there for almost 2 weeks now, and they are relentless. They are not letting up. So I love to see that.
Thank you. Well, thank you both. I appreciate you all. And thank you for the encouragement, Foluke. You all can see us on Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and every single day as we explore these DEIBA topics with the Black DEIBA Collective. Y'all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you soon.